My name is Lucas. 3 weeks ago, I packed up my life in Atlanta and moved to Portland, Oregon, for a job offer I couldn't turn down. Lead UX designer at a promising e-commerce startup. It was the kind of position I dreamed of for years. But dreams, I've learned, come with trade-offs. At 34, starting over wasn't something I was exactly excited about. I left behind my favorite coffee shop, my weekend running trail, and a few solid friendships that had taken years to build. Now, my days were filled with meetings and new software systems, while my nights were quiet. Too quiet. My new apartment in the Pearl District had floor-to-ceiling windows, sleek furniture, and a view of the Fremont Bridge, but none of it felt like home. Most evenings I found myself scrolling Netflix with a plate of takeout and the hum of traffic outside my window. I told myself I was adjusting, but in truth, I felt unmoored. One gray Saturday morning, I remembered what my doctor in Atlanta had said during my last physical. Regular exercise helps stabilize mood, especially during transitions. So I Googled local gyms and found Timberline Strength, just 3 blocks from my building. That afternoon, I walked into the gym's converted warehouse space, high ceilings, exposed beams, and the smell of metal and eucalyptus. I signed the waiver, did a quick tour, and told myself I'd come back Monday. I didn't expect much, just a routine. A way to feel in control again. I had no idea that signing up for Timberline Strength would be the first step towards something far more meaningful than fitness. Something that would change the way I thought about connection, courage, and love. Monday evening, I stepped into Timberline Strength just after 7. The space buzzed with energy, music pulsed from overhead speakers, weights clanged, and people moved with focus and purpose. I swiped my new key fob at the front desk and tried to act like I belonged. I kept my head down and made my way to the cardio area, choosing a treadmill facing the window. 30 minutes of running, that was the plan, just enough to get the heart going. Then I'd mess around with a few weight machines before calling it a night. But as I jogged, my attention drifted toward the free weights section. That's when I saw him. A man stood near the squat rack, loading up what looked like an impossible amount of weight. He moved with the kind of confidence that only comes from years of practice. His black tank top clung to broad shoulders and a back that could probably bench press me without breaking a sweat. His skin was golden brown, his hair slightly tousled, and his jawline sharp beneath a neatly trimmed beard. I quickly looked away, then back again. He was mid-squat now. Perfect form, calm and steady. I didn't know why I couldn't stop watching him, but I did know I was definitely not here to get distracted by some muscle god. I turned my attention back to the treadmill. After my run, I moved to the resistance machines, working through a basic upper body circuit. As I adjusted the chest press machine, I heard a voice from beside me. "You've got the seat a little too high. You won't get full range like that." I turned, and there he was. Squat rack guy. Closer now, even more striking up close. Tall, warm eyes, strong frame wrapped in the faint scent of sweat and cedarwood. "Oh, thanks," I stammered, a little too aware of how flushed I probably looked. "Mind if I?" he asked, gesturing to the adjustment lever. I nodded, and he lowered the seat a few notches. "Try now," he said. I did. The difference was immediate. "Much better," I admitted. He grinned. "I'm Aiden, by the way. Haven't seen you around before." "Lucas," I replied. "Just moved here from Atlanta. Welcome to the land of rain and overpriced coffee," he said with a wink. "What brings you to Portland?" "Work," I said. "UX design." Aiden nodded. "Let me guess, you're part of the after-work crowd. Tech folks, marketing people. This is kind of our prime hour." "What about you?" I asked. "I'm the odd one out," he said. "High school teacher, biology and football coach." That explained the build and the ease with giving instruction. "Well, thanks for the help," I said, adjusting my grip for another set. "Anytime," he said, backing away with a wave. "You'll get the hang of it. First few weeks are the weirdest." He returned to the squat rack, and I tried to focus, but something had shifted. I hadn't expected anyone in this new city to notice me. And yet here I was, feeling seen for the first time since I arrived. Over the next couple of weeks, Timberline Strength became a fixture in my routine, Monday and Thursday evenings. Always around 7, and more often than not, Aiden was there too. At first, we exchanged nothing more than a quick nod or a casual, "Hey." But over time, Those simple gestures turned into short chats, tips on form, light commentary on the gym crowd, or the occasional joke about how I still couldn't figure out how to adjust the rowing machine without looking like I was trying to break it. He was easy to talk to. Funny, too. Always just the right amount of sarcasm, delivered with a dry grin and a twinkle in his eye that made me feel unexpectedly at ease. One evening, I was struggling through a bent-over row, trying to mimic what I'd seen online, when a familiar voice sounded behind me. "You're rounding your back too much. Want a hand?" I looked up to see Aiden, towel around his neck, sweat dotting his forehead. I hesitated, pride flaring for half a second before I nodded. "Please, I've watched 3 YouTube videos and I still feel like I'm doing it wrong." He stepped behind me, placing one firm hand on my lower back and the other lightly on my shoulder. "Hinge at your hips, not your waist," he said, guiding me into position. "Keep your spine neutral, like this." His touch was confident but not invasive. Focused, professional. Still, I could feel the warmth of his hands through my t-shirt. The gentle pressure making my heart race in a way that had nothing to do with the exercise. I adjusted my stance, lifted the barbell again, and immediately felt the difference. "Better?" he asked. "Way better," I said, completing a few reps. "You ever think about being a trainer?" He chuckled. "Nah, teaching teens is enough of a workout. But I don't mind helping people who want to learn. You've got good energy." I raised an eyebrow. "Good energy? You show up, you listen, and you actually try. That puts you ahead of half the people in here." I smiled, surprised by how much his words meant to me. "I usually come in around this time. Tuesdays and Thursdays," he said casually. "If you're serious about improving, I can show you a few things. No pressure." The offer caught me off guard. "You sure? I don't want to mess with your routine." "It's not messing anything up," he said, slinging his towel over his shoulder. "It's nice talking to an adult after a day of students asking if water's wet." I laughed. "Fair enough. Yeah, I'd really appreciate the help." He nodded. "Cool, see you Thursday then." As he walked back toward the weight racks, I realized something unexpected. I was already looking forward to Thursday. And not just for the workout. By our 3rd week of working out together, the gym no longer felt intimidating. I knew where everything was, how to adjust most machines without fumbling, and even which dumbbells weren't always re-racked properly. More importantly, I felt a growing sense of ease, thanks almost entirely to Aiden. Tuesdays and Thursdays became something I looked forward to, not just for the workouts, which were getting more intense, but for the conversations that filled the breaks between sets, stories from his classroom, his opinions on bad sci-fi movies, or heated debates about which local food truck had the best burritos. One Thursday, after a brutal leg day that left me walking like a baby deer, Aiden wiped sweat from his brow and nodded toward the hallway behind the locker rooms. "You ever use the steam room here?" he asked. I shook my head. "Not yet. You're missing out," he said with a grin. "It's the best way to recover after a heavy session. Come on, I'll show you." The locker room was nearly empty, quiet, except for the low hum of a distant dryer. I changed into a towel and followed Aiden down the tiled hallway. The steam room was already filled with thick vapor, the heat like a gentle slap against the skin as we stepped inside. Aiden sat on the upper bench, leaning back with a sigh, the towel across his lap. I settled on the lower level, careful not to let my gaze linger too long on his bare chest. "Good, right?" he asked, eyes closed. "Yeah," I said, trying to relax into the heat. Muscles are thanking me already. We sat in silence for a few minutes, listening to the soft hiss of steam filling the room. It was peaceful, almost meditative. Then Aiden's voice broke through the fog. "So, you've been in Portland about a month now, right? Starting to feel like home?" I hesitated before answering. "Getting there. Work keeps me busy. The gym helps. And, having someone to talk to." I paused, then added quietly, "That's mostly you, by the way." He opened his eyes, meeting mine. "Yeah," he said softly. "It's hard, making real connections as an adult. I get that." There was a beat of quiet. The air between us felt different, heavier, charged. I shifted slightly on the bench, the damp towel clinging to my skin. "I should probably get going," I said, suddenly self-conscious. "Early meeting tomorrow." Aiden nodded slowly. "Sure, see you Tuesday?" "Yeah, definitely." But as I left the steam room and stepped into the cooler air of the locker room, I couldn't shake the way he'd looked at me, like he saw something I wasn't sure I was ready to admit. And for the rest of the night, I kept wondering if that moment in the heat had meant more, or if I just imagined it. By the time Tuesday rolled around, I had talked myself out of what happened in the steam room at least 20 times. Maybe it was nothing, maybe the heat had gone to my head, maybe I'd just been projecting. But the truth sat like a weight in my chest. I hadn't felt that seen, or that vulnerable, in a long time. Still, when I arrived at Timberline just after 6, I slipped back into our familiar rhythm. Aiden greeted me with that easy grin and a clap on the shoulder. "Ready to destroy your legs again?" he joked. "Is anyone ever ready for that?" I said, grabbing a mat for warm-ups. We pushed hard, squats, step-ups, weighted lunges. By the end, my legs were shaking, and sweat soaked through my t-shirt. I was exhausted and, weirdly, grateful for it. Hard workouts had a way of silencing my overactive thoughts. "Steam room?" Aiden asked, tossing his towel over one shoulder. I hesitated, just long enough for him to notice. "Unless you've got to run?" "No," I said, forcing a smile. "Let's do it." This time, the steam room was empty when we entered. We took our usual spots, me on the lower bench, Aiden on the upper. The silence was familiar now. Comfortable. After a few minutes, Aiden spoke. "You seem distracted tonight. Everything okay?" I opened my eyes. "Just work stuff," I lied, trying to launch a new feature. "Still ironing out some bugs." He studied me for a second, then nodded, not pushing. "But then, can I ask you something personal?" My heart skipped. "Sure. When you talked about past relationships, you never said who you dated." "That intentional?" I swallowed, the humid air suddenly heavier. "Yeah, I guess. I'm bisexual, but I don't always lead with that. Not because I'm hiding it. Just, I don't always know how people will respond." Aiden nodded. "I get that. I'm gay, and I usually just put it out there. Saves time. But, I kind of had a feeling about you." I raised an eyebrow. "A feeling?" "The way you look at me sometimes," he said with a small smile. "I've been flirting for weeks. Wasn't sure if you were being polite or just oblivious." Heat that had nothing to do with the steam flushed my face. "I wasn't. I mean, I noticed. I just didn't want to make things weird. You've been kind and helpful, and I didn't want to ruin that." Aiden chuckled. "You're not ruining anything." Then, quieter. "Would you want to grab dinner sometime? Not as gym buddies, as a date." I looked up into his warm, open eyes. My chest tightened, but in a good way. "Yeah," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "I'd really like that." He smiled, and the steam room suddenly felt like the center of the universe. Dinner was set for Friday night. All week, I floated through work like I'd swallowed helium. My team probably thought I was high on caffeine. But really, it was anticipation. Every spare moment, I found myself replaying that steam room conversation, Aiden's voice, his eyes, the quiet certainty behind his words. On Friday, I showed up 5 minutes early to the Peruvian place he'd picked in the Hawthorne district. It was cozy and low-lit, with colorful murals and the smell of roasted spices hanging in the air. I was still scanning the dining room when Aiden walked in, dark jeans, a fitted gray sweater, and that familiar lopsided smile. "Hey," he said, stepping close. "You clean up well," I replied, a little breathless. He leaned in for a quick hug. And just like that, the nerves melted. The conversation flowed easily, just like at the gym, only now with candlelight and cocktails. We talked about our favorite books, childhood dreams, even the worst dates we'd ever had. Aiden ordered confidently, choosing dishes I'd never tried before but ended up loving. I was impressed, and a little smitten. As the night wrapped up, we walked along a quiet stretch of sidewalk near the park. The spring air cool but comfortable. "So," Aiden said, our shoulders brushing lightly. "This went better than I expected." "Same," I said, laughing. Not that I had low expectations. Just, I didn't expect it to feel so easy. He paused, then turned to face me. "Can I kiss you?" The question caught me off guard, in the best way. I nodded, and he stepped forward, hands gentle as they found my waist. The kiss was slow and unhurried, confident but tender. When we pulled back, I was smiling so wide it almost hurt. From then on, our gym sessions ended with a quick kiss in the parking lot. And our weekends were no longer spent alone. We hiked forest park trails, hit up farmers markets, and took turns cooking dinner at each other's apartments. His space was filled with houseplants and books, mine, minimalist and organized. Somehow, we fit perfectly in both. One Saturday morning, I woke up in Aiden's bed to the smell of coffee and the sound of him humming in the kitchen. I lay there, watching sunlight creep across the floor, and realized something both obvious and terrifying. I was falling in love with him. Later, over pancakes, I looked up from my plate. I don't think I knew how lonely I was, I said softly, until I wasn't anymore. Aiden reached across the table, curling his fingers around mine. Same, he said, same. Summer in Portland was like a secret the locals didn't want to share. Long, golden days, breezy nights, and just enough outdoor events to fill every weekend. Aiden and I fell into a rhythm. We spent most nights together, alternating between his plant-filled apartment and my techie bachelor pad. His running shoes showed up at my place. My hoodie started hanging on his chair. One Sunday afternoon, while we were entangling ourselves from a hike near Mount Tabor, Aiden looked at me across the picnic table, a banana in one hand and sun streaking through his curls. My lease is up in 2 months, he said, casual but purposeful. Oh, I sipped my water, playing it cool even as my pulse picked up. I've been thinking, he paused, then smiled. We already share everything but an address. Maybe it's time we fix that. I set my bottle down and grinned. I was hoping you'd say that. We spent the next month apartment hunting like it was a second job. He wanted natural light for his plants and space for his lesson plans. I needed good Wi-Fi and a quiet corner for Zoom calls. We both insisted on a real kitchen. We'd grown used to cooking together, a ritual that had become as intimate as any kiss. Eventually, we found it. A 2-bedroom in the Alberta Arts District, with hardwood floors, big windows, and just enough quirk to feel like us. Move-in day was a whirlwind of boxes, sweat, and mismatched furniture. Friends came to help, pizza arrived late, and we collapsed that night on a barely assembled bed, too tired to do anything but laugh. Not the most romantic first night, Aiden said, one arm draped over his eyes. Are you kidding? I replied, curling against him. I've never felt more at home. As weeks passed, the apartment became ours. His coffee mugs in my cabinet, my books on his nightstand, a toothbrush, a hoodie, shared groceries. The signs were small but meaningful. We still worked out together, Tuesday and Thursday mornings. Just like always, we still flirted during dumbbell curls and stole kisses when no one was looking in the steam room. But now, we came home together. One quiet evening, while folding laundry and sipping tea, I looked over at him, his reading glasses sliding down his nose, a pencil tucked behind his ear, and felt an overwhelming calm settle in my chest. I love you, I said. He looked up and smiled, easy and certain. I love you too. That night, as we lay in the bed we built together, in a space that echoed with laughter and smelled faintly of clean laundry and home-cooked meals, I realized something simple and true. All I had wanted was a routine to anchor me in a new city. What I found was love. And not the kind that crashes in overnight, but the kind that grows representative by rep, touch by touch, moment by moment. Together, we built something strong, something real, something worth holding onto. Life lessons from a chance encounter. Lucas and Aiden's story reminds us that it's never too late to begin again, not just in a new city, but in life, in love, and in how we connect with others. As we age, it's easy to believe that meaningful relationships are behind us or that new beginnings are reserved for the young. But this story gently pushes back against that idea. It shows that connection can blossom from the most unexpected places: a gym, a shared interest, a simple conversation about proper form. For older adults who may be navigating retirement, relocation, or the quiet that follows a life once filled with routine, this story is a powerful reminder. Vulnerability is still worth it. Opening up, even when it's uncomfortable, is how we grow, whether we're 34 or 74. The deep bond between Lucas and Aiden wasn't built overnight. It was formed slowly, through trust, consistency, and mutual respect. In a world that often celebrates quick results and instant gratification, their story teaches us the value of patience, of letting things unfold at their own pace. Perhaps most importantly, it highlights how love, in all its forms, can offer a sense of home, not a physical address, but a feeling of belonging. And that's something we all deserve, at any age. So whether you're stepping into a new phase of life or simply yearning for connection, remember this: it's never too late to find someone who sees you, truly sees you, and chooses to stay.